Welcome to our new series on bikes and beginner bikes in particular. Beginner bike riding, beginner bike maintenance, and all things to do with bikes from someone who is a beginner. So Tim has been in the bike industry for over 25 years, including 10 years owning his own bike shop. I bought my first bike in 2012. I bought it second hand, and I bought it not really knowing anything about bikes. I just wanted to do triathlons. So a colleague I was working with was selling her bike and it seemed to be the right size, so I bought it. And I haven't really learnt a lot about bikes in that time, but I've decided that what I have learnt is actually quite important to share with people, because some people are real beginners and they just don't know what to do and what to buy. And what Tim and I are able to do is to take his knowledge and put it into layman's terms. In this series we're going to be looking at three sorts of bikes: a road bike, a triathlon bike, and mountain bikes. And I'm going to take you through from buying a bike, different parts of the bike, some maintenance of the bike, how to look after it, some bike skills, bike etiquette, a whole lot of different things over the coming videos. If you've got any questions that you've been too scared to ask someone because you think they're too beginnerish, here's a good place to ask them. Put them in the comments below and I'll either answer them in the comments or I'll make a video about it. So don't think the question is too basic. Just ask away and we can all learn about bikes together. We're going to look today at road bikes in particular. With a road bike you need to be quite aero, so you're kind of down in a more aero position so the wind can go over the top of you. So the road bike has three main positions for your hand. So it can be on the hoods, and that's kind of the most common position because you're really close to the gears and the brakes, and it's a bit more secure. Particularly as a beginner, you like to know that you've got the brakes close by so you can stop in a hurry. You can also have it on the top, and that's quite good for hill climbing, or just if you want to sit up a little bit more, because obviously then if you're on the top you're a little bit less aerodynamic, but it's good to give your back a rest. And then down in the drops, and the drops are great for getting your body lower and a much more aero position so you can get a lot more speed. So road bikes have skinny tyres, and mostly now you'll find road bikes with 28mm tyres. That's how wide they are. So they used to be years ago much skinnier, so kind of 18mm, but they've moved up to 28 because I think the technology has changed and allows you to go faster with a little bit wider tyres, because obviously the wider they are, the better grip you have on the road. But if you go too wide, then it slows you down. So hence the balance between the how wide they are and how fast they are. So most road tyres are 28mm, and you might need to know that because you need to buy a new tyre or something, and there are some varying widths. So you can get up to 30mm at the moment. So the gears, this is the part that confuses me the most. Generally road bikes have two chain rings on the front. They have a small chain ring and a large chain ring. Well, they're named by the number of teeth that they have, and the small one has between 34 and 39 teeth, and the large one has between 50 and 53 teeth. At the front, the more teeth it has, the harder it is to pedal. So if you're on the smaller one, then it's easier to pedal. If you're on the bigger one, then it's harder to pedal. It's the opposite on the back. So keep that in mind. You talk about the small chain ring or the large chain ring. Usually the small chain ring, your legs are spinning more. Also good for climbing hills. The large chain ring is a much harder gear, and good for when you're getting speed as well. So to be able to put more power down and get more speed up. On the back you have a different number of teeth. So the back cassette has between 11 and 28 teeth generally. The smaller ring you are in the back, the harder it is to pedal. So that's your heavy gear, and then if you go to the more teeth, then it's the easier it is to pedal. And that is simple physics. So if you're into physics and science and you get that, then that makes sense. And if you're someone like me who doesn't get that, you just need to know the small one at the front is easier and the big one at the back is easier. And I still make the mistake of changing to the wrong gear at the wrong time. So the frame material, most modern bikes are made with either aluminium or carbon. The general thinking is that a carbon frame is better, but that's not always the case. So for instance, Tim likes to ride an aluminium frame because he finds it stiffer and he just prefers that. So if you're buying a new bike, you don't necessarily have to go with carbon, because you hear people talking about, oh, it's carbon fibre. They're lighter, they're a little bit faster, but for a beginner, it's probably not going to make a big difference. the biggest difference between the carbon and aluminium is the price. So if you're a beginner and you're worried about price, go with aluminium. So if you're in the market for a new bike, here are my top 3 things to look for. I've decided just to do the top 2 things, as the third one I was going to talk about the components, but that's really a whole other video. And sorry about that blower noise. Someone's obviously out doing their gardening and I didn't realise until after I'd finished filming. So number 1 is to know your budget. So if you really want all the high-end things but your budget's $1,000, you're not going to get it. So think about what your budget is first, set that budget and go, okay, well I want to spend $1,000. And you can get a good beginner bike for $1,000, it's Australian dollars. You know, or if your budget's $5,000, then that's going to determine what other things that you can get. So think about your budget first of all. Number 2 is to know your size. The worst thing that you can do is buy a bike that's the wrong size. Generally bikes come small, medium, large, extra large. There's some women's specific bikes that will come in an extra small. So with the size, it's probably best to get measured up at a bike shop. But if you don't want to, or you don't live close to a bike shop, or you're in lockdown and you can't get to a bike shop, there are some online calculators. So basically they measure your inseam, but also you need to know your torso length. So this top tube here, that's probably more important than the length, because as you're bending down, you can't change that length of the bike as much as you can the seat post. So if you've got longer legs, you can put your seat post up and down. I would either go into a bike shop and get measured up so that they can tell you what size bike you are, or go and use the online calculators. So at least those online calculators will give you a guide until you know what size bike to actually look at. So does brand matter when it comes to buying a bike? Probably not. So some people are very, loyal to their brands, their bike brands, but if you're a beginner and you're just looking for a bike, they pretty much all do the same thing. So I wouldn't get too caught up about getting a specific brand. If you buy a new bike, I'd love to see it. Tag us in it on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, and we'd love to see what you end up getting. So remember to find your finish line, and hopefully a good bike will get you there.